This is the Tree of Life, Season 23, Chapter 5. In this episode, we will be integrating the last episode with our discussion of the bubble universes described by infinite recursion. To start out, in Season 22, Chapters 5, 6 and 7, we talked about the bubble universes represented by substitution events and infinite recursion. The idea was that in negation manifold convoluted paths descend from path parsimony, with each path involving the transformation of an analog structure, that is a substitutionary structure describing two causal sets, to a digital structure. The resulting digital structures, produced through acquiescence at the conclusion of each of these increasingly convoluted paths, are chiral to the structures formed beyond the boundary of the substitution event. That is, the termination of infinite recursion occurs due to weak phase linking between the digital structures at the boundary of that substitution event. This weak phase linking is manifest in the compelling of acquiescence according to some bodily rhythm or cycle. Now, in the last episode, we talked about virtual particles and discussed an analogy whereby the appearance of virtual particles, as chiral particles, could represent the conclusion of these substitution events of infinite recursion. The idea was that at the Planck scale, these bubble universes pop, so to speak, through the rejoining of path parsimony to time parsimony at the boundary. Now, path parsimony describes the path from which all the descending convoluted paths descend. For the observer on this path, it is as if none of these negated paths actually occurred from that observer's viewpoint. But we also know that in the rejoining of path parsimony to time parsimony, there is a causal reordering within the universe beyond the boundary. That is, in the transformation of substitutionary structures, analog, describing two sets, we see the creation of a digital, or exclusionary structure. But for the observer beyond the boundary, the history of all those convoluted paths are reflected in the history represented by the exterior universe. Thus, the negation represented by path parsimony and each of those convoluted paths is not actual outside the bubble universe. This occurs through a causal reordering, which may be connected to the substitutionary sets represented by all of those convoluted paths mediated by the phase linking at the boundary of the bubble universe described by the Planck scale. It must also be noted that each act of negation is a partial measurement, which represents decoherence. It is this decoherence which is erased from the history of the universe beyond the boundary. But in the acquiescence, which occurs at the conclusion of the substitution event, caused by weak phase linking between the chiral digital structures at the boundary, we see the measurement reversal which resumes coherence, as if it was always so. This detour, represented by path parsimony, thus occurs within a universe which is distinct and outside of the linear time of time parsimony. Thus, the distinction between path parsimony and time parsimony is intended to highlight the fact that time parsimony is the simplest path along the gradient of time, whilst path parsimony is the most linear path along the gradient of space. Thus, we can see that there is a decoherence beyond Planck scale, where these virtual particles exist, within the bubble universe, in a variety of convoluted paths, described by substitutionary sets. But this decoherence is eliminated at the Planck scale, the boundary between the bubble universe and the exterior universe, through the phase linking which reverses the measurement or decoherence. Thus, we can find satisfactory answers in this analysis for a number of different phenomena relating the internal states of consciousness represented by substitution events and infinite recursion, with the primordial physics of a fractal, holographic universe. That's the end of the podcast for today.